Hello, welcome to Just Prime. As part of this video, we are going to understand integration of JPA with Spring Boot application. So we are going to see how to integrate JPA with Spring Boot application along with the database connection, right? So for this one, what we are going to use the database MySql and JPA configurations along with the Spring Boot application with the REST client. So these are the things we are going to understand it. So let me start a simple application first. Okay, so as usual I just opened the Spring initializer to create a simple Spring Bean application. It's a Maven application and a 3.2.4 version, and it's a Java related application, right? So it's a 17 version Java. So these are the basic configuration, and now let me give the group ID, artifact ID. Spring Boot JPA. So this is artifact ID. I'm going to give the just prime. So group name I had given com.justprime, and package name also I want to give same as com.justprime.springboot. So I can give whatever as per your wish, but this is what I had given. It's up to you. So now the second part is we have to add the dependencies, right? So the dependencies, the first one is web application. We need to create a RESTful client, and the second one is we are going to use the uh, JPA. So you can just type JPA, you will get it. And the third one is we are going to use the MySql. So we have to add the MySql related character. It's a MySql driver. So this is MySql driver and a JPA and Spring Web. So these are the basic things is required to execute a Spring Boot application or to connect a Spring Boot application with the JPA along with MySQL database, right? So now let me generate it. So the project is generated. Let me open. So this is the project, it got generated, or you can take it directly, go to your project Spring Boot and paste it over here, unzip it. Yes, it's unzip is done. So you can import this application into your Eclipse. So I'm going to import into my Eclipse, finish it. So now your Spring Boot JPA application basic skeleton is ready. So here we have only a main application, we don't have anything else. So we'll start creating one by one. So first one I'm trying to create a controller. So I'm going to give test controller. So because we are trying to develop a simple REST service, by calling the REST service, it will call Spring JPA repository, and JPA repository will connect to the MySQL database and it will try to insert the data. So that's what our implementation plan. So first we will start with the controller and finish it. So let me mark this as a REST controller, and inside that I'm going to create simple method get data, and I will mark this as a get mapping, and let me give a name called test. Okay, so let me return here success. So when someone is calling this API, it will return success as a string. So your controller is ready. Now what is the second part? So we have to create a database. So before creating the database, as part of our previous videos, I have already created how to install MySQL database and how to create database and how to create tables. So you can go through the video once, and the same thing you can able to find the MySQL related video into the video description. So you can take it and go through that one and install the MySQL database, and how you can able to, if you follow the video, you can able to see how to create the schema also. So for this video I'm going to create a simple schema. So this is the MySQL workbench I have already installed in my machine. If you don't have it, so I will give the video link in the description part, so you can take it and try to install the MySQL and go through the next subsequent steps. So now let me start a database creation, database or schema. So I'm going to create student, or let me give test underscore db. So this is our simple schema name, test db, and apply, finish it. So your test db is, our test schema is prepared. So now currently the active database is course database. Now let me make this as a default database. Now database is ready, so we have to create a table over here, right? So what we have to do, let me create a simple table here. I'm going to create student. So this is my table name. I'm going to give next column names. I'm going to give id as column, and this is a primary key and not null. Next one is name, primary key, email is another column. So this is not a primary key and these are not null keys. So okay, so id is primary key, name and email, these are just varchar and not null key. So these are the three columns is available inside the student table. So once this column creation is done, you just go back, apply, okay, finish it, and then come back here. You can verify your student table, and currently it don't have any data, right? So clear it. So your table is ready. Now what we have to do, to populate the data from your Spring Boot application to database, we have to create an entity class which can able to understand your MySQL database. So for that, what we have to create an entity class. So what is the entity class? I'm going to give student. So you can give any name, but if you see here, there is a student table is already there, so you can mark this as an entity, and next one is at the rate of table. So here basically, say for instance, now if you see this table name and this class name is same, if the class name is different and you want to map to the corresponding table name, you have to give your name here if it is a different. Otherwise, if it is same, you can ignore it, right? So now currently the both are same, so I don't want to give anything. Let's make it as a simple. Okay, so your table is ready, but in your table currently you have three columns, right? So you have to populate all the columns. Int id, and what is the id is primary key, so we have to put this as a primary key id. So next one is name, next one is email. So if you want to change the column name, say for instance here name is there, if this name and this column name, if it is different, then you have to give at the rate of column and the corresponding db call name. But right now we have similar name, the field names and the column name, so I'm not going to give anything. If it is a mismatch, so you can give here the database column names, right? Next one is you can create setter getter select all, finish it. That's it. Remove this column, we are not using it, right? So your entity class is ready. The next part is, so your controller, inside the controller you are going to fill the data, but your database class is ready. But how your database is will connect your Java class, right? So that is the second part. So to understand that one, so we have to write a repository class called student repository. Student, actually it is a interface, it's not a class, it's an interface. So we have to create interface. Student repository, I just given repo, finish it. So this should extends JPA repository, right? So when we are extending the JPA repository, JPA don't know which table we have to connect, right? So we have defined a table name called student. So we have to put here table, and inside the table, if you see here, right? So what is the primary key? So ID we have to pass it over here. So basically student is table name and integer is the primary key, right? So now your repository is ready, but we have to mark this as a repository. So your repository is ready, and which will work with student table and with primary key as integer. Now your student repository is ready. You can take this repository and you can make it available in the controller class, right? But we have to create an object, that is the interface. So we have to auto add this one, because if you see here, this is the interface, right? So we have to create an object. For creation of object, we have to mark this as a auto add. So the Spring Boot will create an object and will try to populate the corresponding DBA related operation like save and all, so that we will see it later. The implementation will provide by Spring application with the help of AutoWire, right? Now your controller is ready, right? So inside your controller we can see student is the main table we are going to work with, right? So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a student object here with proper details. One, student ID 1, test, or Ramesh you can give. So you can give the std.set email. So I can give name as ramesh@gmail.com. So basically what I'm trying to do here, I'm just filling the data with one record to populate data into database of student table. So okay, now it is ready. Your student table is ready. I need to save this one into the database. So I can pass it here std, right? So once this save part is done, then your controller will return success, right? So this is about your controller part. Your controller is basically, it is auto wiring the repository class, and it is making ready the student object, and finally we are saving this object into database. So far our Java class is ready to connect with the database, but the main point is, what is the database credential, where it is available, what is the username, password, right? So these are the basic things it is required to your Spring Boot application to connect with any database. So what is the driver class, what is the username, what is the host URL, port, all those things, right? So these things we are going to provide in your configuration property called resource application hyphen properties, right? So here you are going to provide the database details. So if you don't know what is the database details, you can visit one of our previous video called MySQL installation and configuration. So there you will get all those things. What is the URL, username, password, how to install it, how to get it, how to configure it, right? So but right now I have ready made available these details. I will just take it. I will explain the properties one by one so that we are clear. See, if you see, the first one is URL, spring data source.url. So this is basically it's a MySQL server URL where the server is installed, what is the port and what is the database name, right? So we have already created one of the database called testdb. So this is our database name, testdb. So you can take it here, you can keep it here. And currently in my system, MySQL is running in my local machine and the port is 3306. So that's about the URL, right? So the next one is username root. I had given the password as a test. Generally we should not give password this much easy password. We have to give complex password in the production, but we are in learning phase, so we are just giving a simple one, right? The next one is a driver class, in the sense, so your Java don't know what's a database, your is MySQL, Oracle, whatever, right? So we have to give an instruction saying that we are trying to use the MySQL database, right? So and basically Spring Boot is in a kind of Hibernate, and we are going to use the all DDL, so it will try to do updates. Okay, so that's about all these properties. It's basically we are trying to give instruction to our Spring Boot application. You can use this database configuration and connect to this database and persist student object or save the student object, right? So that is what we are seeing it. Before saving or before running our code, we will just come back here and we will verify the student table. Right now we don't have any record, it's having empty records or zero records. Now let me run our application. Okay, let me run it. So it is trying to download all the necessary dependencies and it is trying to create a jar. Okay, if we observe very closely here, if we observe very closely here, so there is a Hickory pool is connected because we are trying to use here uh, we are trying to use here MySQL database. So it is trying to use Hickory pool database and it is trying to connect, right, while it is executing the JUnit test cases. So that we are observing, right, Hibernate transaction, meaning everything it is trying to initialize and while doing the test cases, right? So this is the way you can build it. Now we have to run the application. So I'm going to run it. Once our application is running successfully, then we are going to call our REST service. So let me open the console clearly and we will see it now. So here you see, here also it got created a Hickory pool starting and your database is ready. It's Hibernate and your server is running up and running 8080 port, right? So now it is good to go. Initiate a call to your REST controller. So let me open browser and so what is the method API test? So if you see here, right, so when I called it here, it says success and our controller also called, right? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to verify the database whether it got inserted record or not. Let's come back to our database. Let me run it. Yes, if you see here, right, so there is one record is inserted, one Ramesh gmail.com, right? So one record is inserted. So let me run one more time. What will happen if I run one more time? So basically what is happening here, we don't see any error, but still, but you will not see any record here because what is happening? The same ID or student ID it is trying to insert again, so it will not work, it will fail, though we are not doing many exception handling and all. So that we are going to see as part of second part of this JPA tutorial. So I want to save the second student also with different ID. So every time I cannot come and change here, right? So let me generate a random number. Random equal to new random, and from this I'm going to get the student ID. So I'm not going to hard code, I'm going to generate every time a random number and let it give a name as Ramesh, or you can use Suresh also. So now we can run any number of times, it will generate a different or unique student ID and it will try to save the student details, right? So now let me restart our application and let me start it. And if you want to see the student ID what it got generated, you just written here, you get it back, std.get id. So basically we are trying to save the student details into database and we are trying to get back the student ID what it got generated, and we are trying to give back to the controller or user, right? So now let me restart our application and then we will initiate one request, so that way we can ensure our application is connecting to database and it is trying to insert the data. So before running, let me show you. So we can see only one record, Ramesh, and now I'm going to run another request. So if you see here, it's a success returning along with that one of the student ID. So now let me verify the student ID at database as well. See here, what is the student ID ending with 799. Now let me run it. So we have another record ending with 799, Suresh. So this is the way the student ID is generating random number, so that we can able to install, we can able to insert any number of records just by sending another request. See, again it's generating different one. Ideally student ID should not be negative, but this is a simple learning project, so it's okay. So it's generating new numbers, right? So you can send any number of times, so that many records will be inserted with a unique ID. Now let me verify the same at database side. Yes, you can see here there is a lot more records are inserted. So we can see it, all the records. So these many records are inserted, but student name is same, but it's okay. It's just a learning project. Okay, so this is the way you can able to connect from Spring Boot application to any database. For right now we have used here MySql database, and with the help of entity class, which will map all the columns to the corresponding database column with the student class fields, and student repository, where it is Spring repository we are using it, and with the corresponding table name integer, and it will implement all the corresponding table operations. Let me show you. If you see here, right, you can see many things. What are the APIs it will support? So we are using it save, right? So the save and all, basically here all these operations we are getting it as part of the super service, super interfaces. See, there are interfaces which we have available. We see here save. So basically we are trying to use, this is the save method which is got implemented, abstract method, but it will implement as part of the Spring Boot based on the class you are trying to give here. What class you are giving, accordingly the save method will be save or delete. We are going to see as part of the next video, we are going to see remaining methods. right? So how it will work, but right now we have seen only save method. So this will be implemented on a runtime based on the class name and the unique ID you are trying to give it. So the same method we are calling from the controller, and which will save the details into database with the help of your application properties database details. I think that's all about this video. If you like the video, you can subscribe the channel for more subsequent updates. Thank you for your time.